Okay, we are studying in Proverbs, and we're looking at the major section dealing with money or finances, and we'll get close to wrapping up this general subsection of that tonight, but we may not get all the way through. I do want to show you before I pick up here where we left off. We're in chapter 19. We'll be in chapter 19, verse 1. And two things. This is why I sometimes say y'all have to just holler at me, because last week somebody was telling me, it was Miss Julia. She said, what I want to know is what is Billy doing that you're answering his text in class and ignoring mine? I said, well, you sent me a text? She said, yeah. And I said, so I opened up my phone and I'm thinking, bless her heart, she thought she sent me a text. And I was like, oh. and then I realized, oh yeah, Mike sent me a text too. So I don't know how I missed it. I apologize. Sometimes that happens. Best I could figure is because Billy's was the last one of those three that came in. But anyway, Mike and Julia had just kind of done a quick little search. I'd mentioned it'd be interesting sometime to look at better in Proverbs and see how that's used. And they had just done a quick little search and were saying, hey, this is how many times I'm showing that it appears. So what I did was, let's see here. I did put a little, it's not really a whole lot to it, but we'll take a look at it and see. But I wanted to open this, send it to Good Notes here. Well, if I can find it. Am I looking in the right place here, Cam? Why am I not seeing Good Notes? Come on. There, maybe that's it. Well, I see Freeform. There it is. We'll just do a new document. That way I can, just lets me draw on it or use a pointer, which is what I'm on already. Okay, so I know y'all probably can't see that. Let me blow it up a little bit. So you see the heading there, Proverbs on things that are better. So there's your Hebrew word. It looks like, according to Blue Letter Bible, it's pronounced something like Tob. But it's 62 times in 62 verses. And I was telling Rachel the other day when she got home, I was behind last week at the end of the week because I went down this rabbit hole. I think it was on Friday morning. I thought this would be a quick little thing, but it took a little more time just because better is, a few different times in Proverbs, but the Hebrew word appears a few other times. So here you see it's rendered good. What is that, 39 times? I didn't list those verses here just because obviously there are 39 of them, so that's a lot. But several times this word in Proverbs is listed as good. A good name is rather to be chosen, things like that. So 39 different times, 39 different verses. But you also have better, and that's kind of the more familiar one, which is 20 different times, but in the ESV, 21 times. And the reason, I'll show you in just a moment, merry, loving, bountiful, one time each. The word merry is cheerful in the ESV. Loving is the one that is better in the ESV. It's rendered as better. And then bountiful is generous in the ESV. And you see these verses here. These are the KJV renderings, and I just highlighted that Hebrew word, and you see all the way down it's better until you get to 15:15 here. All the days of the afflicted are evil, but he that is of a merry heart hath a continual feast. And the ESV says cheerful. He that is of a cheerful heart. 22:1, a good name is rather to be chosen than great riches, and loving favor rather than silver. Loving there being that Hebrew word tob, and it's favor in the ESV. And then, of course, I mentioned bountiful, 22:9, and it's generous in the New King James. And if you want, one of the main reasons I'm showing you this is, again, we're just not spending a whole lot of time on it, but if you want this, I got the King James list with the Hebrew word information there, and then the ESV list and the New King James list. If you want some of that, part of that, all of that, let me know. I'm happy to share that. But interesting study, 62 times. I was surprised to find it that many times, but again, most of those are the word, it's rendered good, something that is good. But you do have 23 different times where it's either better, merry, loving, or bountiful. I thought that was interesting. But yeah, sorry again if if you send me a text and I don't acknowledge that or address that within just a few minutes, it probably means I haven't seen it. So sometimes I just tell folks just to say, hey, I sent you a text on that, or just kind of wave your hand or something just to make sure. So, because sometimes I see stuff, sometimes I don't, and sometimes that's just I'm locked in on what I'm doing, I guess. But let's go to chapter 19 of Proverbs. I thought I went to chapter 19. It says 18. There we go. I'm still a little surprised that I didn't catch, even as many of those times as it's rendered good, the word better being 20 times in the Old King James. I don't know. I'm kind of surprised I didn't catch that and have like that somewhere as a subsection. But anyway, interesting study there. So 19:1. Do I still have my versions the same? Yes. So New King James left, ESV on the right. I'm reading, for the first time reading through each one of these will be King James. Better is the poor that walketh in his integrity than he that is perverse in his lips and is a fool. So there's a contrast here, contrasting an honest man who is poor or he's living in poverty as opposed to a dishonest man who is foolish. And I put in my notes here, perhaps, perhaps it's implying that the dishonest fool has wealth or means. And I say that, and I think I almost lean stronger than perhaps, but I just don't know that I can say it for sure. But I say that because better is the poor, walking in his integrity, poor who is honest, we would say, than he who is dishonest. And, well, what's the opposite going to that, back to that first phrase? Wealthy. Opposite of poor would be wealthy. So it seems to be implying that the dishonest fool here is wealthy. And again, that's a term of degrees. That's a relative term. Maybe he has some kind of means. And I would think that if it's implying that, it probably is implying that it's wealth that is not 100% honestly gained. So, just saying, and Alden points this out in his commentary. He says that, it's not saying every single poor person is honest. Have you ever known a person who was poor, maybe even living in abject poverty, but they were dishonest? They were not a good person, spiritually speaking, morally speaking. It's not saying every poor person is honest. What it's saying is, as we sometimes say, honesty is what? It's the best policy. Honesty is best. And of course, there's your word, better, that we just talked about a moment ago. Honesty is better, even if it means you don't have as much money. You don't have as much means or wealth. It's still better to be honest. Well, but I can make so much more money if I just, it doesn't matter. Honesty is better. It's the right thing to do. And that's the idea here. I don't even think I have to scroll for this next one. It's verse 4, same chapter here, 19. Wealth maketh many friends, but the poor is separated from his neighbor. Wealth brings many new friends, ESV says. New King James, very more similar to the King James there. Poor man is deserted by his friend or separated from his friend, but I like the ESV on that first phrase, wealth brings many new friends. Well, if you've got some money, maybe people just find out you got money, maybe you're just starting to bring in the money, or maybe it could be an inheritance, whatever. But is it not a fact that it'll a lot of times bring new, and you know, we should use the air quotes, friends, because people are going to, again, it's a sad truth. Greed a lot of times will make people gravitate toward the wealthy. And what does the second phrase say? The poor man is separated from his neighbor. That same principle makes that will often make us kind of go, when we find out, perhaps if somebody's got wealth and means, and we're sort of like, oh, well, you know, maybe I need to befriend this person. But it's almost like that the same mentality, it's just in polar opposite form, makes us, if we find out somebody is very poor, we're kind of like, I don't know, I'm not. It may not even be consciously so, but sometimes that can happen where we sort of avoid them. The reason being many times because, well, maybe I'm afraid that they're going to ask me for something. Well, wealth makes many friends, but the poor often gets separated from his neighbor. This is one of those where, and you'll see several of these, we mentioned it last week, where it's kind of just states a reality. It's not saying that's a good thing. It's just saying that's the way it often is. We'll scroll just a little bit for the next one, verse 7. Yes, sir.
That's the prodigal son, he could tell you.
Yeah, lots of friends, I'm sure, when he headed off to the far country. Chris mentioned the prodigal son. A lot of friends when he went off to with his brand new inheritance that he got from his father, and then of course he wasted his substance, and he ends up alone. Where were all the friends? Well, that's the reality of Proverbs 19:4. Wealth makes many. Brings many new friends. Again, I like that ESV rendering. But a poor man is deserted by his friend. Well, when the money runs out, a lot of times the friends run out just as quickly, or not soon, or not long thereafter. 19:7. All the brethren of the poor do hate him. How much more do his friends go far from him? He pursueth them with words, yet they are wanting to him. And, some of these verses, it's kind of hard to say that they don't, there's not some sense of being a unit. And you see that from verse 4, wealth makes many friends. I'm looking at the New King James here. But the poor is separated from his friend. A false witness will not go unpunished. He who speaks lies will not escape. That one doesn't seem as related. But then you have verse 6, many entreat the favor of the nobility, and every man is a friend to one who gives gifts. We've talked about that verse just recently in this section. All the brothers of the poor hate him. How much more do his friends go far from him? He may pursue them with words, yet they abandon him. This one is interesting. I was looking at this in Alden's commentary. He mentions that in chapter 10, all the way through 22:16, or maybe up to 22:16, this is the only proverb with 3 lines instead of 2. I can't, it's just going to scroll. I was going to say I can't use my little pointer thing in this app. But you have all the brothers of the poor hate him. That's line 1. How much more do his friends go far from him? That's line 2. He may pursue them with words, yet they abandon him. I didn't go all the way from chapter 10, what verse was it? Well, chapter 10 through 22:16 to count every single, to look at every single proverb and every single line to see if that's true, but I'm taking his word for it. Of course, that brings up the question why, and I don't know that anybody can give you a definitive answer. As he points out, it could be an anomaly. It may be that a line is missing, and this was originally 2 verses. If there's a line missing, you have 4, and there'd be one proverb with 2 lines, another proverb with 2 lines. Maybe. I don't know if that's the most likely. It may be a scribal error in adding that 3rd line. A lot of people say it seems a little bit out of place, perhaps, and maybe that's what happened. Sometimes it's easy for something to be written in the margin, and it could creep into the text by somebody who's copying. They've been copying a long time, not great lighting, tired eyes. It makes for something like that. It can happen. Again, I don't know. I don't know if that's the most likely. Either way, the point of this verse is very clear, right? Very similar to what we just read in verse 4. That's the point. It's also similar to 14:20, which we've looked at already in this section, 19:4, we just noticed. And even verse 6, many entreat the favor of the prince. Every man is a friend to him that giveth gifts. Oh, look, here's somebody that they like being generous and giving to folks that are around them. Well, guess what? A lot of folks are going to be around them. People figure that out, and they'll use you. That's not to say that everybody that's around that person is using them. Some people may genuinely want to be their friend. But the sad reality, again, is that sometimes that's what it's going to come down to, is just people they're going to see, well, can I get something for me? Greedy gravitate toward the rich in hopes of getting something, and they avoid the poor for the fear that, they're going to want something, they're going to need something, or sometimes they're avoiding them because they think that they're going to want something from them or need something. And so maybe I just stay away from them because, they're going to. In fact, have you ever had somebody come up to you before? Maybe it's out in a inner city somewhere, or maybe somebody says, I remember, Levi may or may not remember this, but it was several years ago. We drove, it was Joshua, Levi, and me. I don't know if Noah went on that trip with us or not, but we went to St. Louis, and it was all the boys have birthdays like within 3 or 4 months of each other, so that was everybody's birthday present. We're going to go watch the St. Louis Blues game. So we come out of the game, and we're about to walk to the Metro Link to go and get our car from over on the Illinois side, and this guy comes up. He sees us, checking out the statues and stuff, and we were getting ready for one of us is going to take a picture or something like that, because there's always statues, well-known players outside the rink and stuff. Well, this fella comes up, and the boys were a lot younger then, and so I'm kind of, I'm not like just, crazy getting nervous or anything, but I'm just sort of, and I think he picked up on it. And he said, sir, I don't want anything from you. You guys look like you're going to take a picture. If you'd like, I'll take your picture. And again, I think he picked up on it because I looked at him like, I ain't giving you my phone. He said, man, I'll just take your picture. He said, look, he said, you can leave your phone locked. I can take your picture. And I was like, okay. You know what he did? He took our picture. And he gave it back, and he's like, all right, man, y'all have a good night. That's all he wanted. He was just trying to be nice. So sometimes we may stay away from somebody because we're just so convinced. And I mean, I'll just go ahead and tell you, when I saw him coming, if I could have gotten away with the kids, I'd have probably been like, yo, come on, let's go. This homeless guy's going to come and ask us for money. But he did. I mean, in fact, I think he probably saw that we were kind of wanting to get away, and that's why he said, hey, man, I don't want anything. I just feel like you're going to take a picture. So sometimes we just convince ourselves, they're going to want something. So that's kind of what you see, though. Again, sad reality. But we do need to avoid such discrimination, and that's what it is, especially if we can take it even further and it becomes just outright discrimination. It's to an extent, I think, either way. But we need to remember, of course, Acts 20:35 is more blessed to give than to receive. But that third phrase seems to be a cautionary tale to the poor man, assuming that's genuine to the text. And again, I think that explanation of it being a scribal error may not be the best explanation, so it seems to be that it is genuine. But this phrase, he pursueth them with words, yet they're wanting to him, it seems to be a cautionary tale. If you are on the other side of that and you're the poor man, it seems to be it's kind of warning against going around constantly looking for loans, constantly looking for handouts. It's not to say I can't ever ask for help. It's not to say I can't ever take a loan out or receive a handout from somebody. But it's saying don't just go around chasing people all the time. I mean, you know as well as I do, you can have somebody who is a genuine friend to you, but at some point, for whatever reason, if they start asking, can you give me $5? Hey, I don't think I got my wallet today. Can you cover lunch? Oh, man, I went off and left my wallet again. You got lunch today? Is that cool? What happens before long? You ain't going to lunch with that guy anymore. He wants to go to lunch. You're like, yeah, you know what? I think I'm gonna just stay and eat here today, or I got plans, or whatever. And that seems to be the idea there when he says he pursues them with words, but does not have them. He's pursuing after them with these words. Maybe it's begging, maybe it's asking for a loan, whatever. But eventually, people are kind of like, you know, we talked about this some with the reasons why people don't like you, or reasons why people struggle in relationships. If you're a mooch, eventually people are kind of like, I'm done with that. So, interesting thoughts there in several verses that are kind of right there clustered together. Let's go down just a little bit, same chapter, to verse 22. And really, we're looking at the second phrase, but we'll read the whole verse. The desire of a man is his kindness, and a poor man is better than a liar. We're obviously looking at a section on money, finances. Poor man is better than a liar. Now, the idea here, again, better be honest, even if that means you end up in poverty. Better to be honest, even if it means you could be rich otherwise. Extremely rich, extremely wealthy otherwise. Still better to be honest. It's the right thing to do. We did mention, I'll mention this just briefly before we move on, that Alden, he notes in his commentary that the Hebrew word, it looks like chesed or something like that it can mean the very opposite of loving kindness, which is how it sometimes is translated, or steadfast love. If you see that, New King James, right? I just lost my place. Yeah, 22. No, that would be ESV has steadfast love. I knew I saw it somewhere. But the Hebrew word can actually mean the opposite of that. And you see the only instances we can say that with 100% certainty would be Leviticus 20:17, Proverbs 14:34. Righteousness exalteth the nation, but sin is a reproach to any people. Same Hebrew word that is rendered here kindness or steadfast love. Kindness in the King James and the New King James. But I don't know. It's an interesting thought, and maybe it is, but here's the deal. I looked it up. The Hebrew word appears 241 different verses in the Old Testament. I don't know. I didn't go through every single one of those. It may be more than once in some of those verses, but at least 241 times in your Old Testament. And there's only two that we can say for sure where it should be rendered either, what's the term in Leviticus 20? I forget what the word is there, 2017. Wicked thing, yes. Or disgrace is the way the ESV renders it there. So, 2 times out of, what, 241? that we know for sure. This would be 3 if indeed it is here. But it would make sense because the desire of a man is his disgrace, his reproach. In other words, your greed will get you in trouble. Your greed will be your downfall if you're constantly saying, gimme, 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 give me more, give me more, give me more. It's a reproach. It's a disgrace. It'll bring you down. So it certainly might work that way. I don't know if I can say for sure, but 15:27 does say, he that is greedy of gain troubleth his own house, and he that hateth gifts shall live. So anyway, second phrase there was mainly our focus. Even if it means being poor, honesty is best. Anything else on these verses from 19 before we go to chapter 20? I'm going to look at my phone and make sure. Okay. All right, chapter 20. 21. Hold on, I got to swap here. 20:21 says, an inheritance may be gotten hastily at the beginning, but the end thereof shall not be blessed. In other words, wealth or possessions that are inherited, just handed over to us, they tend not to be appreciated as much as what we get from working hard. Is it wrong ever to have something just handed over to you? No. Is it always the wisest thing to do? Maybe not. But either way, even if it's in a situation where it's not wrong, is it true or false that the people who appreciate it more are the ones that work for it? And they sweat, they work hard, they save, and then they buy it. Who appreciates that more, that person or the one that says, wow, I bought this and I got 2, so here, I'm just going to give you 1. Well, who's going to appreciate that more? And if you don't believe it, just watch. I told y'all about the fella. It always makes me laugh because he was just such a goofy kid sometimes, but he would always do his burnouts in the Mustang that his parents had gotten for him. I keep wanting to say Mustang, but I think it was something else. But anyway, it was some kind of sporty pony car type thing, and he'd always want to do the burnouts. And then finally one day, one of our classmates says, "Let me see your keys," and he gets in there and he pulls up about a foot, turns it off. He said, "I just wondered if that thing was capable of taking off without balling a tire." But that's how the guy was, and we all knew why, because he didn't buy the tires. Mom and Dad bought them. They bought the car. They bought the tires. They changed the oil. And if he blew the engine up, they probably would have just bought him another one. But who appreciates it more? The one that in a situation like that where it's just handed to him? Again, not inherently wrong, but it's just not appreciated the same as somebody that you work hard for something. And that's the idea here. Sometimes we can go too far with that and say, well, somebody should never have anything just handed to them. But that's not what he's saying. He's just saying they're just not appreciated the same. I thought I had a quote here. There it is. This again is from Alden, page 152 of his commentary. He says, some children are actually cursed by inherited wealth. Money quickly gained at the beginning destroys personal initiative and stunts growth. In the end, they are worse off than people who have worked hard for their money. I think that's a good way of putting it. It's not saying it's wrong, but it can happen, and often does happen, sadly, that it can stunt growth, and it can, in some cases, even become, well, I haven't blessed my children by giving that to them. I've cursed them. And sometimes it doesn't feel that way when you're on the receiving end, right? But how many times have we looked back later and said, I wish that hadn't been just given to me. At the time, I would have said to my older self, idiot, be quiet. let them give it to you. But as you get older, maybe you say, I would have appreciated that more. I would have used that better had I just worked for it myself and bought it with my own money or whatever. So, again, there's a balance there. There was another one I was looking for here. Proverbs 13:11 is a cross-reference I've got here in my notes. Wealth gotten by vanity shall be diminished, but he that gathereth by labor shall increase. All right, that's it for chapter 20. Anything else on that one? Yes, sir.
No, Ecclesiastes chapter 2, verse 18, that deals with that very topic. Solomon says, Yea, I hated all my labor which I had taken under the sun, because I shall leave it unto man who shall come after me. He says, Who shall know whether he shall be a wise man or a foolish? Solomon addressed that very thing.
Yeah, and that was part of why he just kind of looks and says everything's vanity. It's just like grasping at smoke. Because, man, I can work myself silly. I can save up all this money. I can have all this accumulated wealth. But just like anybody else, I'm going to die one day, and then I'm going to leave it to somebody. And if a man has no children, it might go to whomever. But even if he's got a son, who knows? His son may be a fool. And, of course, the irony of that is, who's writing that? Solomon. What was his son like? He was a dummy. I mean, the people come to him and they say, make our load easier. Seems to be a reference there, at least in part, major part, to the tax burden. Like, go easy on us, man, and we'll serve you. But he listens to the young folks, and he's kind of like, well, you ain't seen nothing. So, yeah, that's a good point there. And a lot of times that happens because the appreciation isn't there, because they didn't work for it. They just got it from dad or mom or whoever. Anything else? Did I see somebody else? Yes.
How does that all correlate with Proverbs chapter 13, verse 22?
Let me remind myself of 13:22. Sometimes it's easier just to go this way. Oops. Oh, yeah. A good man leaves an inheritance to his children's children, but the wealth of the sinner is stored up for the righteous. And the question was, how does what we're talking about here with 20, I already forgot the verse, 21, how does that correlate here with 13:22? I think two things come to my mind. One is a good man leaves an inheritance to his children's children. There is an inheritance that ought to be first and foremost, and it has zero to do with money, obviously. There's a spiritual inheritance that we should leave to our children. But I also would think that that second phrase does tie it in at least somewhat with material wealth, because he says the wealth of the sinner stored up for the righteous. And I think that also is a key phrase there, that second line, because it seems to be saying if you are wicked, if you're misusing, whether it's wealth or whatever, but particularly here in the context of wealth, it's laid up. Is that how it was said? I'll make sure. Stored up for the righteous. Laid up in the ESV. In other words, does God have a way of he can even things out? It doesn't even have to be in a miraculous way. It can be providentially. And if you handle it wickedly, selfishly, ungratefully, and so on, God can say, you know what, I'll take that away from you. And so I think how that would tie in especially is leaving an inheritance in the form of making sure that you help take care of them, set them up in a position so that they're not just doing nothing, but, it might be in a situation of, well, I'm going to make sure they've got money to go get an education or to go to that trade school or whatever so that they can take care of themselves. I'm not going to just, hand them a bunch of money and say, hey, just live off that and do nothing. But also train them how to handle it, how to handle living the righteous life so that they don't take those blessings for granted, so that they're using blessings for God and to help others. I think that's kind of how a lot of that would tie in together. Does that make sense? Anything else on that? Somebody else may have some thoughts on that one.
Proverbs 22:6 says, train up a child in the way that they should go. You know, I think that sometimes we miss all the training that parents are responsible to do. If you've acquired wealth and you don't take the time to sit down with your children and explain how that works, you're the fool.
Yeah.
You know, you don't put a child in charge of keeping the line if you're in Africa without teaching them
Right.
how you handle the line's food and caring for the cage. You just go out and take care of that line. Your child's probably not coming back.
Yeah, there's got to be some teaching there.
Yeah.
And that was kind of, I mentioned a story a few Wednesdays ago where a guy I knew that was kind of taking advantage of a young man who was he was essentially destitute. He was trying his best to start off as a newlywed, and he messed up. He set the alarm but didn't lock the door on the store. The store got robbed that night, and the guy's like, "Oh, we got to figure out a way to pay for these phones that got stolen." And man, it just made me so angry. And that was one of the things that I said to him. I was like, you put an 18-year-old kid that you really didn't give proper training to in charge of your store. What did you think was going to happen? Come on, man. You got to give some serious training and some help there. But yeah, there's training involved in anything. And if you don't train somebody, then I think that's a very blunt way to put it, but it's so true. If I don't train somebody, I'm the fool. If I don't train them and then I put them in charge of something, oh, I'm so upset. Bad things happened when I put you in this position that I did not prepare you to take over at all. Well, yeah, I'm the dummy in that case. I'm the foolish person. And sometimes we reap the whirlwind of our own actions in that case. That's a good point. Anything else on that as far as with this concept? Yes, sir.
Training is not telling. Teaching is important, but training, how'd you like to go into the military? These people told you how to go to war.
Yeah.
Now you're in war.
Yeah, there is a difference in training and telling and teaching even. And it involves all those. There's sometimes, and that's a struggle as parents, I think all parents would agree with me on that, is sometimes we tell, and we need to be teaching and even following it up with training. Sometimes it's like, I told you. But yeah, there's a difference. And to Bob's point, how would you like to have, the guy defending the country who, he went to a class and they told him how to go to war, they told him how to fight, but there was no training. So yeah, it's a difference. 21, anything else?
Hey, Chet,
Good thoughts there on that. Yes, sir. Go ahead.
It's interesting when Jesus teaches the parable about talents. Because he mentions that one man was given 5 talents, another man, I believe it's 3 talents. And then he said that one man was given 1 talent. We're familiar with the story. But he used a word that will be relative to your discussion. He said you ought to have put it to the exchangers. That's an interesting word to use. Ought. That means there's a recognized standard. If I say, Chad, you ought to have, that means that there is a recognized expectation of what you should have done. Who taught this young man about putting money to the exchangers so you could get the interest? Who did that? It appears that, though, that is a role of a parent, that they should teach their children how money works. Because Jesus didn't say, well, you may not have known this, but he said, you ought to have. That's always stuck out to me.
Yeah. And assumptions can be deadly. Sometimes we just assume, again, as parents or be as a supervisor or whatever, sometimes we just assume people are gonna get it, pick it up, and we're not explicitly saying, hey, like you said, I mean, we need to understand how this works. If you are spending more than what's coming in, you got a problem. And, yeah, there's sometimes needs to be some training there and make sure people understand, our children, particularly our own children, to understand how this thing works. Because, yeah, there's a standard there, and he says, and the guy's just sort of like, hey, it's in the ground. There you have what's yours. And I mean, he doesn't just say, well, you know, okay. I mean, he's upset. The master, that is. He's upset with him and says, you didn't do right by this. But yeah, there is a standard there. Yes, sir.
Dave Ramsey calls that kind of foolish financial decision about going off halfway, making decisions and having long-term consequences. It's called a stupid tax.
A stupid tax, yeah. That's, I've not heard that term before. I've heard that used before, like with lottery tickets. It's a tax for people that can't do math. So, which I resent that. I don't do that. But if I'm not very good at math, but I'm smart enough to know the odds of that. But you made me think of something that just slipped my mind now. It'll come to me later. Let's see. Let's look at 21:17 real quick. I know time's just about up. He that loveth pleasure shall be a poor man. He that loveth wine and oil shall not be rich. It's a warning here against having expensive taste with a modest budget or a modest income. Kind of goes right with what we were just talking about. And Chris mentioned and Dave Ramsey calling it a stupid tax when you're spending more than what you have coming in. It's kind of a tax on just being foolish, dumb. I mean, stupid is a blunt way to put it, but sometimes we need that bluntness, don't we? This verse here, 21:17, also seems that it's an admonishment to balance. It's not bad to have fun, recreation. It's not bad to feast. It's not even bad to have like fine dining, right? There's nothing inherently bad about that. But there's a need for two things here: moderation and proper timing. You can do a good thing, a perfectly acceptable thing at the wrong time, and then it becomes a bad thing, right? Such as, Proverbs talks about it sometimes. When it's time to be out in the field harvesting, and you're in the house asleep, or you're in the house feasting, you got a problem. When it's time to be planting, and you're in the house, or you're doing something else, you got a problem. Anything wrong with sleeping? Anything wrong with eating? Anything wrong with being in your house? No, nothing inherently wrong with that. But if you're doing it at the wrong time, when you need to be doing something else, that is a problem. And that's the point here. So essentially, all pleasure without working, that's bad, that's foolish. All work and no play is not a good thing either, of course. I remember what you had made me think of, Chris. Dave Ramsey, I saw something recently where if you are a preacher, you can take his Financial Peace University for free, which kind of made me laugh because I'm married to Reagan. I don't need Dave Ramsey. I got Reagan Campbell Dollahite. I got somebody probably better than Dave Ramsey as far as finances go. So, but that is interesting to me. Okay, thank y'all very much. We'll stop right there, and not next week because we got a practice night coming up for our young folks, but the week following. Oh, and I did see your text, Billy. I almost forgot. Billy mentioned that it might very well be that the master of those men with the talents, it might be that he had taught them. But as Tim pointed out, he expected them to have known. You should have at least given it to the bank so it could have earned some interest. Somebody taught them, whether it was the master or somebody else. Thanks, y'all.